All right, so this is a Luna electric electronic e-bike. It has a Bafang mid-drive motor. Looks like these guys collaborated, I'm assuming. Full suspension bike. Looks like we're finding out like the e-bike's a pretty heavy bike, right? Somewhere 45, 50 pounds, maybe 55. These bikes fall over, just have them standing up by themselves. They fall over in the garage. Looks like they can bend the crank arm pretty easy, so I could see that's going to be an immediate upgrade right there. You can go ahead and replace it. It's going to happen again if you get the same type of crank arm. It just depends how bad it falls over, how bad you crash. But anyways, upon test ride, which test ride was pretty cool. This thing was pretty fast, pretty responsive. Bit of a kick when you hit that throttle. But anyways, there was a pretty nasty creak that was there constantly, especially when you did a little bounce, verified the bounce, verified the creak, I mean. Just hard to tell where. When you got a full suspension, you got pivot points everywhere. You got a pivot point right where the front of the shock is, the rear of the shock. Then we have a linkage. Then we got 2 bolts here. Could be a sealed cartridge bearing. Got 2 more bolts at the other end of the linkage. Could be sealed cartridge bearing. And then we go back down here. We got a swivel. Could just be a shaft that goes through. Could be another sealed cartridge bearing. We got that on the same side too. But if you can identify any of these noises, when you're diagnosing, troubleshooting, it's either the front of the bike, either the down at the fork in the wheel, or headset area, or just front end of the bike. Got the middle portion of the bike, then we have the rear of the bike. So this one is pretty obvious. It was somewhere in the middle of the bike, somewhere up on the top end, so looking at the shock. So once it unbolted everything, got a shaft that comes out. This one has a chip, or I don't know what you want to call it, but you can change it if you get a 200 millimeter shock, or 210 length shock on here. I guess you can flip this around, change your travel, which is probably going to change your geometry, either give you more slack head angle, give you more travel, or vice versa, depending on what kind of riding you do. Pulled the shaft out. Shaft was pretty dry going through the shock here. Could that be it? I don't know, possibly, but I went ahead and lubed that up. Whatever you do use, I mean, minimum you can use an oil like a chain lube, but if you have a grease, something like I'm using Slick Honey, Buzzy Slick Honey, so it's made for suspension, things that are sliding constantly. This one may be rotating a bit, but I guess you could go ahead and use the Park Tool thicker grease, but just, put a thin coat, just a sheer coat that you can see it, but not too bulked up. That way you don't cause a big mess everywhere. But we're going to put a little bit there, putting a little bit on the sides where it's going to get pinched in between the mounting area, because we did show some wear marks. Some of the paint had come off, but normal wear, I'm not worried about that, but you can tell that's a wear point and it was moving, so that could have easily been a friction area, so we went ahead and lubed that up. It may just need to break in over time, who knows. But this is stuff you just need to listen to, be aware of, and then try and address it, the moment you hear it. And sometimes, unfortunately you do have to wait till something becomes really, really loose or actually breaks. Hopefully you don't get to that point, but some stuff is really hard to find and diagnose. So I'm gonna put this guy back together.